type the item is, like whether it's a restores HP or restores HP and chi, or increases your stats, it's so hard to find things, and you're just like searching through like, and you don't, when you pick up an item, you don't know whether where the item ended up, whether it was equipment or inventory. There's just no messaging on that part. And like, I mean, this is like, and in 2001, really guys, you could have at least sorted them. Because at this point, RPGs were like, I mean, like, I know the 95 and 98 versions not having sorting, that makes sense because they are old games. But if you're gonna redo they spent so much effort redoing all the art, redoing everything, redoing the entire dungeon system. Because I heard these dungeons are actually more lenient than the previous game versions for editions dungeons. It's like you could just spend some time tweaking the UI to make it better, and it's just like it's such a wasted opportunity. So messing with the inventory becomes a real chore, so you end up having to read descriptions over and over again. It's really annoying. It just wastes my time. It wastes time, and it's just not a good experience. And like that's probably the number one most annoying flaw is just the UI. Otherwise, and the other thing is like, man, there's so many pointless side quests in this game. This is one of the first games where I've run into like side plot stuff that really kind of didn't go anywhere. There's a few things where there are a few side quests that do give you stuff, which is actually good. Like especially like in the last one was the most recent one was in that cave, and then you had to buy. You could actually learn techniques for Anu and Xiao Yao at the same time. And that was a nice side quest that for going all the way to the end of the dungeon. That was really cool. There was like just stuff like in Chang'an, that whole section with 2 side quests with the bathhouse and the brothel. They didn't do anything. I didn't get anything for doing them. We're spending the time reading what they had to say. So there's so many pointless side quests. It's just weird, and like side quests that don't go anywhere. That's kind of an annoyance too, but whatever. It's not the worst thing possible, but it is a little strange. Anything else I can think of? Oh yeah. And the other thing is like text that just goes way too fast. The other thing is like when you pick up an item, I know I sound like I'm bashing the game, right? But I gotta point these out. Is like when you get an item, or sometimes in battle, sometimes the enemy says something really fast and it just goes away like 2 seconds. It doesn't give you time to read and ponder what especially like there's a fight in the locked demon tower, which is where you're fighting the prison king, and he's just spouting stuff off, and then it just goes so fast, and it's actually pretty relevant information to why they're so afraid of Linger and incident at the time, because like Linger is considered very powerful, and because basically that conversation's the main point was that he's saying that even though right now she's fine, she's very kind, there's no guarantee that she won't be. He's basically compared it to a tiger cub. He's saying like, see, tiger cubs when they're young they're really cute and nice, but when they grow up they can still become wild and fierce tigers. He's basically saying like she would end up being the same way. Like there's that possibility, and there's no guarantee she wouldn't become someone who is way too powerful and not necessarily going to use it for the right purpose. So that's what he was arguing at the time. But yeah, that like, and when you pick up items, it goes way too fast. It doesn't stop there, so it doesn't make sure the player confirms that he's seen it, like in other RPGs, like even Chinese and Japanese alike. Like Chinese and Japan, the other games actually let you have to confirm. And also when you level up, the other thing is like when you get spoils, it doesn't let you click through them quickly. You just have to wait till they appear and disappear, and that's kind of annoying too, because like sometimes I want to see what my level got me, and then it just goes so fast away. And I think I don't know why they did that. It's just these weird UI bugs that kind of bother me. But generally, let me think. Anything else I want to say? Oh yeah, and I also want to say the audio is for this game is really good. I've been mouthing off for a while, but the audio quality of this game is extreme. Is actually like the music's really good, and the sound effects. Well, the voice effects sound pretty good, but the let's see, what was I going to say? But the music's really good. I'm totally going to get the soundtrack. I would totally get the soundtrack for this game, and it's classic for a lot of people as well. And that's like one of the impeccable things about Shenzhen, like its soundtrack. And I mean, some people say the old ones are better, so I don't know. The old ones are like very MIDI, and so they're completely different from what you're hearing right now. And is there anything else I can talk about? So I've already talked about gameplay, and the audio is really good. The songs are really good. The sound effects are pretty pertinent for the most part. The voice acting is a little bit better, yeah. Let me think, anything else? I talked about gameplay, I talked about story writing. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, overall, would I recommend this game to someone who could speak the language? Of course. Obviously, the one downside of this game is that there's no translation of this particular version of the game. There is one for the 1998 version if you want to try that, but that one is a little bit bare bones for my liking. But if you just want to get the basics of what the game is about, you could probably get away with playing the 1998 version. There's some translation choices that I feel aren't correct, and sometimes it just comes out sounding really, really awkward for a Westerner who's like, what the heck is going on? But generally, if you just want to play through it, really, that's a good way to do it. Anything else I want to say? Yeah, so would I recommend to someone who can play the language? Absolutely. Like, even after all the bad things I've said, it's easy. They're not so... They don't make it so game-breakingly bad. The only thing I may say is, like, if you can't stand long dungeons, you may want to be a little bit wary of this game. This game, and technically, it's not all, like, a lot of people say it's a hard game, but I don't think anything in the game was really hard except maybe one or two of the bosses, but with proper strategy, you should be able to beat it. And if you really feel you're getting pummeled, then maybe you can just easily level. There's so many monsters, it's so easy to grind. And you should be able to get through it. And if you're just patient enough, and I guess at certain points in the story, if you just want to, at certain points in dungeons, you just start playing your own music or playing someone else's LP or something else to keep you happy. Some people actually like grinding. So if that's the case, this is the game for you. It's old school grinding for the most part. It's battle systems are not complicated at all. So you should be able to do it, just buff yourself and do a bunch of stuff. And it's actually surprisingly you can poison people in this game successfully. That's actually really cool, that sometimes the status effects mostly work. There's some spells that are pretty useless, like insta-death, which misses all the time, which kind of sucks. But anyway, yeah, overall I'd recommend it. So yeah, if you know Chinese or and you get a chance to play it, you should totally do it if you haven't already played it. If you're someone from the series, you probably want to play this game because it will probably clear up a lot. From what I heard, this game is quite different from... The portrayal of certain characters is different in this game, and you may want to come do this one instead to play the game. This is the original work, so... And also, you're probably going to get better graphical effects than you got in the show. The show's graphical effects are awful. I'm sorry, I'm being critical. I'm spoiled by the West and Japan, but oh gosh, the budget for those TV series is so bad. So the CG is so cheap looking. It's almost bad enough that I can't watch it. But I mean, I've seen a little of it, but I don't know of the show. The show is a little weird, and also, yeah, some of the I've seen some subtitles for it in English, and they're pretty bad too. Anything else? But yeah, if you know Chinese and you have not played this game, for some reason, or you've just gotten to a certain point, you should totally play this game. It's actually really fun. And the story will definitely be awesome. And it's better if you know some Chinese culture, but generally if you look things up, you should probably be able to kind of piece together. And there's a fan forums in English if you want, or in Chinese. There's plenty of that too, because there's plenty of nostalgia for the first game. Of course, it's the one that sold the most, and it's the one that everyone thinks of. Like everyone knows Li Xiaoyao, Zhao Linger, Lin Yeru, and of course Anu. Anything else I wanted to say? And if you don't know Chinese and you're learning, this is probably not the game to try to learn Chinese on. Or you can, but you will be talking like a like a person from that time, rather than talking like a modern person, which is probably what you probably want to learn first. Generally, if you're learning Chinese, you should probably learn how to speak like an actual person in this century talks, rather than how someone talks in the 17th or 16th, 15th or 14th century. I'm actually not sure when this game takes place. I'm assuming Song Dynasty, but I'm not 100%. Other people say it's Ming Dynasty, but I think that might be a little too late. Anything else? And the other thing is, like, I wanted to say is, like, I guess I can talk a little. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is, like, in terms of like how this translation thing worked out, I think for the most part, I think I did okay. There were a lot of things I could have improved, and I need to, like, when I first started, it was kind of shaky. Even tonight, I didn't do that great of a job. There were some words I forgot or I didn't know, and that's one of the tough parts with this kind of game, is that there's some stuff that's not used as much in modern times that you would have to know by reading other things, and that's a tough part of the translating games like this. But fortunately, we are living in an age of information, and you can probably figure this out. And if you're ever like, if you look it up in Chinese, it's even better, because most likely the Chinese dictionary is better than your Chinese to English dictionary. And I think, would I do a translation like this again? Of course. I'll probably do it for a different game, the next game in the series as well, and hopefully I'll probably boost my Chinese power by my Chinese language knowledge by then for wuxia. This is the genre this game takes place is wuxia, and a lot of stories are like this. And is there anything else I can think of? So yeah, I guess the things I would improve is, like, the one regret I kind of have for translating is that I wasn't able to. I mean, okay, other than the slow speed occasionally, depending on, and my stickler for like looking up words for everything, trying to understand every single word, which is both good and bad because it slows down the stream sometimes, like it did earlier today. The other thing is, like, I wish it was easier to communicate, like, the different pronouns that the characters use, which is the hardest part of all, because there's no English equivalent for that kind of stuff, or it's very hard to kind of express the same feeling in English. It's kind of like let's compare, like, for some of my viewers, like, Japanese might be a bit more from, I don't know, but at this point, I think it's just it's just you and me now. But at this point, some people are more familiar with anime, and so they'll know about, like, watashi, atai, or boku, ore-sama. Well, no, that's really rare. But it kind of works very similar to how in Japanese, but in this time, like, the pronouns would actually change. For the same person would change depending on who the person was speaking to, whereas, like, it's actually really interesting. And I think it's kind of weird that's kind of like, that's the way they talked before. Like, they'll say like 人家奴臣. There's of course there's zheng, but that's for the highest one. That's for the emperor. And, like, everyone has a different eye, so you could tell, like, kind of like the speaker's relationship to the person they were talking to just by the pronoun they chose to use. or like 小的 if you're like if you're just doing you're servicing a customer, and then 逍遥 uses that pronoun at one point, or 本侠, which is yeah, I'm some great hero and all that stuff. But it's really interesting to see like the that's the one thing I wish I could have been able to express that more. But if I try to do that, I'd be spending 5 minutes just on pronouns, and that per every conversation, and that would have slowed things down. I kind of learned I'm trying to learn, kind of like trying to adjust my pacing a bit too. I was listening to some of my earlier videos of like, oh man, some of the decisions I made were like some of the earlier ones where I was trying to translate a bit too literally. It didn't work out as well, and I felt like, and it's like kind of like, yeah, it's that point where you have to kind of localize it, because if you try to translate it literally, it's just gonna sound really weird. So hopefully I'll be able to give a bit better sense of like what pronoun they're using, but I don't make any guarantees. It's just too hard. It's just really hard, and for you, the viewer, you're mostly concerned. You can probably figure out the relationship in context anyway. And of course, if it's not clear in context, I will say so. Is there anything else I need to say? Well, yeah. So I think that's my thoughts on the game. So I hope that everyone, I guess like this is like either it's time for you to learn some Chinese, and then you can go play this game, or hopefully we'll be able to work on a fan translation. There's an effort to do that. Maybe I'll try to help, because I work pretty well. I can edit English text and perfectly fine. So, and it was kind of fun to be able to try to make things not sound really like broken English, and that's actually the toughest part of them all, of doing translation. Is like just trying to make it, localize it for, it's kind of like localize it, basically turning it into something that the person, that the English speaker can understand. It's really cool. It's really fun, and it's really fun, but sometimes it's really tough. And for ancient Chinese, it can get really tough at certain points. But I've already mentioned all that before. So now that I'm done talking about the game, we can talk about the future plans. So as you know,